Hi, Stephan. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I
Yeah,
appreciate it as well.
I told you a little bit before when we started discussing something just a minute ago. I got some of the men to discuss to submit some questions and topics that they wanted me to hit on with you. And then I also have some really close friends that have been following you for years. And they
Okay.
were like, you better give me a question up in there. Like, this is your role. Like, you got to, if you're my friend, you got to get one of my questions in there. And I was like, okay, I will. So I'll see if you can spot out one of those questions if it was from the girl.
Sounds good.
So as you know, guys, as I said in the intro, Stephan is an amazing, amazing dating and relationship coach that works with women. And for a lot of you men that always ask, why aren't there any dating and relationship coach for women? Well, there definitely is. And a lot of you guys that probably do know him, he speaks a lot of truth about dating and relationships. And Stephan, something that I really love about you and your work is not only do you speak from, I think you really do speak from your heart, but you speak from truth as well. Even when it's hard to say, you know, in regards to personal development and why relationships, and we get into certain relationships in life and things like that. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I wanted to start it off and kick it off with one of my first questions is, do you think that women and men go through the same struggles when it comes to dating?
Absolutely. There are some slight differences here and there. And the reasons why they go through the things that they go through will vary. But at the core of it, good women, good men are all struggling, all, having a hard time out there. Everyone thinks, other people aren't going through what they're going through, but it's just simply not true. And I would go even beyond, forget just men and women. I got clients in different countries. It's the same. The core issues are the same no matter where we go, who we talk to. Again, there are some superficial things on the surface that may vary and be different, but at the core of it, it's all the same.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think that when I started the coaching practice a little bit over 5 years ago, I started actually coaching women, and I was like, I'm not too sure about this. Let me try coaching men. And I actually really loved coaching men because I actually had a really soft part in my heart for men. I was a woman stepping into the space that really, I had to prove myself, I think a little bit more because women really are open a lot to like women giving women advice, but with men, it's like, I get why they were very standoffish of me coming up front because sometimes they think that, and which I know, because from experience that I've seen, like women don't understand the issues, women don't understand the problems. And I come in with like wanting to give a woman's peace of mind to them as a woman. So and that brings me to this, is one of the things that I've seen is struggling, and I'm sure you have too with women, is we get into the wrong relationships for us, right? Like we're always attracting that person and we're like, why can't we just find the one? Why am I just jumping from relationships? Or why doesn't someone just want me and want to love me? And that is something I thought only women went through when I was in my 20s. But I've noticed it more than ever with men as well. What is something that women come to you prominently, like mostly about when it comes to love?
There's so many different things. I think just this, in general, they're just coming to me with the simple fact that they're struggling. They don't know how to make it work for them. And many of them are currently dealing with some kind of bad relationship, whether it be a situationship, an official relationship, separated right now. A lot of them are typically dealing with something at the moment. It's not, I mean, there's plenty of women who come to me completely single, completely detached, but in most cases they're coming because they are struggling with someone right now and they don't know what to do about it.
Yeah. What is a woman's number one complaint when it comes to men, do you see?
A woman's number one complaint. Okay, so I can't say this is number one, but what's popping in my head is the fact that they feel like men don't know how to hold a conversation. All right, it's a very common one that I come across, to the point where if you're a man and you know how to hold a conversation, you immediately separate yourself from the pack. you're immediately like, wow, okay, this guy's different. He has more depth to him. You become more intriguing in that way. And so I think that is something that commonly they come across. I think in general, oh, you know what? Here's another one that women complain about a lot, is that men are too focused on the visual.
Yep.
And the unfortunate reality, though, is there's no way around that. Like,
exactly. No, I know.
You know, men have desired the visual since the beginning of time. It's the same way I'll tell men, women want financial stability. That's not going to change. We can have a segment of women who try to say, it's not necessary, but for the most part, women are drawn to that. They want to see that in a partner, and men are drawn to the physical and want to see a good aesthetic as far as they're concerned, if they're going to get with you.
Yes. I love that you mentioned that, because it is very true. It's funny because in my coaching, a lot of the guys will be like, well, I don't want you to get offended, but the reason why I got really attracted to her is because she was just so beautiful. She's a model. I'm like, well, I'm not going to get offended just because I'm a woman. Like, I know how this goes for men. Like, I tell you guys this all the time. Of course, I'm not going to get offended. Of course you want to. And there's a lot of differences between the woman's mind and the men and then the mind of a man, how they operate and how they think. And there comes down to all of that. And I talk about that a lot, and I get to understand that. I think it's really important that women too understand, the mind of a man a little bit more too, as well. I think that's something that is lacking in the space. And that's why I do enjoy your videos, because the ones that I have seen, a handful of ones that I've seen, you do talk about that a lot. And I do know too that there's a huge, and that brings me to say, like, there's a huge disconnect being in this community and dating and relationships. I see a huge disconnect from men and women, and just so much things happening because a lot of people are acting from, I would say, pain, right?
Absolutely.
And then they react in that painful emotional moment, and they're like, no, and they put a wall up where they're like, there's no good men, there's no good women, all women are gold diggers, all women use you, do this way, go to the left, go right, whatever, right? Why do you think that's happening right now?
Well, like you said, people are speaking out of hurt. The biggest issue that we're facing is that people haven't healed from their past. That's, to me, is the number one problem. It's the reason, or it's the biggest contributing factor to choosing the wrong partner, staying in bad relationships, thinking that no other good options exist. Just all the negative perceptions that come about in people's minds stem from them being hurt and them having not healed from it. And so I also think when you mention understanding the mind of a man, or even understanding the mind of a woman, I think the problem even deeper than that is they're rejecting what the opposite sex desires. So you tell women have heard millions of times men like the physical, but they don't want to accept that. It's, why should this matter? You have men who have heard millions of times women value financial stability, and some men still want to reject that. Oh, it shouldn't be about the money. And it's like, listen, we have to start accepting what the opposite sex desires. But then that issue even plays out once people get in a relationship, because now you're there and you're not accepting what your partner needs and desires from you on both sides. So we see women, I have to say, blatantly neglecting their man from things that he's always said and made clear he wanted and needed. But now you want to say, well, he should be willing to accept my neglect if he loves me, rather than I should love him enough to want to pour into his needs, and vice versa. And so I think if everyone healed, number one, and started accepting and embracing what the other person needs and what the other gender needs in general, things would get so much better.
How would a man even handle a conversation with his woman like that when that happens?
You know what?
How should, I should say.
Let me tell you, I'm not trying to make excuses for men, but I feel like a lot more men could handle that conversation. The problem is, and again, this is not to blame women, but the problem is women aren't very clear about their needs and desires in a relationship. Nope. There's been tons of men who said, if she just told me what it was, I would have done it. I just didn't know what the hell she wanted. And she, women want you to read them. They want you to figure it out. They figure that if you love me enough, you'll come to this conclusion on your own. Men are very 1 + 1 = 2. Tell me what it is. Tell me what works. I'll do it. As long as it works, I'll keep doing it. But if you tell me, oh, I want you to give me some more time, and okay, I figure, all right, well, I'm going to take you out an extra day out the week. But in your mind, you're thinking 3 days. I'm thinking I'm doing my part with the extra day. We're still disconnected. But if you don't say that, if you're not specific about your needs, it becomes very difficult for people to basically meet your expectations. So I honestly think that a lot of men could handle the conversation, but we've got to be very clear, honest, and transparent about what it is.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of them, I think, in this status, I think the status quo in society today, a lot of them back down from that because they don't want to be looked at as the, I can't say it here, but the a-hole, they don't want to be aggressive. They're scared now because they don't have clear connection on what assertiveness means and what aggressiveness means. And that's why, that is the biggest reason what drives me in my practice is the fact that masculinity, I feel, I shake when I talk about this stuff because it's so true to my heart. Mm-hmm. The fact that masculinity has starting to be kind of put down and kind of put in a Band-Aid on and say, act a little bit more nicer, be this way, do this way, listen, and just kind of brought in more into the feminine and having a man go push into more of a feminine essence. As a woman, that doesn't work for all women, it really doesn't. And the number one, and I tell men all the time, the number one reason why I picked my husband, no matter what, is because not only was he successful, he's not a multimillionaire, but he's an entrepreneur, he's on his purpose. He sets me straight when he knows it's not good, I'm having a little attitude, or the fact that something cross boundaries has happened, or something has happened. And it's not about setting me straight and be like, you need to do this and being all, manipulative, but it's more about, tell me why you think this is okay, because it's not. You're acting a fool right now. Tell me why are you doing this? You know what I mean? Uh-huh. And it gets me in the mindset to be like, shit, I got to answer him. Why am I doing this? And that is a great way. And I tell men all the time, when you see something like what you were explaining just happening, put it back on the woman, question her intention. Question, why are you saying this? Why are you doing this? Right? I can't guess what you want. So you're going to have to at least help me identify what you need. But then also with that too, the icing on the cake is really understanding a woman's response, her emotions, what sets her off, what are her weak points, what are her strong points, and all that. I think it's really important as a blend in a relationship, right?
Absolutely. And I think for the men, they have to understand, because there is an element of feminine essence that we have to tap into in certain moments. 100%. It's about balance. You have to have the proper balance of masculine and feminine, but proper balance does not mean 50-50. It doesn't mean 50% feminine, 50% masculine. You need to be 80 to 90% masculine and 10 to 20% feminine essence that you can tap into when necessary. And funny enough, that is kind of how our body works. When in a man, the testosterone level is a lot higher than the estrogen level for a reason. And when the estrogen goes up, that throws things out of whack. So you're not supposed to be estrogen dominant. Same way you're not supposed to be feminine dominant as a man if you want to be successful in relationships. So I think a lot of men have not been taught the balance of it all. I'm a firm believer that the ultimate man is a combination of the nice guy and the a-hole.
Yeah.
Right? I've lived both lives. I've seen how it works.
I've dated both lives.
You know what I'm saying? And it is clear to me, when you combine those two, that's when you win. That's when you win at real relationships. The a-hole can still win if you just want to bag girls and sleep around and all that kind of stuff. But if you want a real relationship, something successful with someone that you truly love, then you have to learn the proper balance.
Exactly. Especially if you want to attract what we would call maybe a high quality woman, or a woman with your perceived, I would say, qualities in regards to what you want from your value system. Right.
Yes.
And that brings me into, I love the work that you do, because you talk a lot to women about, if you want a man to be a certain way, then you have to uphold this yourself. So what is it that you want? A lot of us aren't clear about our values and things like that. And I'm not too sure if a lot of people really talk to men about being clear about values and having standards when they want to get into a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right?
no, it's true. I think so. I was saying I was on a different podcast a few weeks ago, and I had explained where we always tell women to know their worth, but people take offense to men knowing their worth.
Yes.
It's like we're not allowed to have standards. We're not allowed to think highly of ourselves. Now we're being arrogant, but that's what women are pushed to do. And so I encourage men when I do speak to men, because I do have videos and books for men, and I tell them like, hey, man, you got to know your worth too. And you have to set a standard too. And I think what's important is you can't be afraid to lose this woman. And I don't mean that in she's a disposable kind of way or disrespect and diminish her value. I mean that it's the fear of losing her where men basically slide out of the masculinity and right into the feminine. All right. And in that, you think you're now going into overdrive to show her love and this desperation to keep her, but you're becoming more unattractive while you do that. So you're actually losing her even more. And sometimes she might stay with you out of pity, but she's not drawn to you anymore.
And then the sex is not happening either.
Exactly. So it's important to know your worth in the sense that, hey, we're both valuable here, and we both deserve to be honored and respected here. And if you can't uphold that, then you got to go. Now, if you do your part, I'm going to do my part. But if you're not going to do your part, hey, then so be it. And I think when you have that kind of attitude to it, it taps into your masculine energy more. It allows you to hold true to your standards. And now I think you're going to see way more success as a man when you do that.
Oh, 100%. I think too, when a man can uphold his standards and know his worth, that is like the biggest icing on the cake, because women can naturally feel that when a man does that because of his energy, but also his dialogue, how he positions himself, the way he goes about planning dates with her or even dating her or even being with her, right? I think it comes down to that. And I think a lot of times more than ever these days, men are not, it's not spoken to men to know your standards and know your worth and know what you expect from women. We've taught women to, like, they're the ones, which I understand because I'm a woman myself and I love, I'm a lover of women, but I say this all the time, like, men have to understand, like, two things here happens is when you go outside, right? Like when I'm outside, the first thing I think of is like, what is my surroundings when I'm by myself and I don't know where I am, right? Especially at night, right? I'm always, when I'm driving, I'm like, who's behind me? I want to get my windows tinted, like because of things like that. And then when trucks are by me, I'm like, oh my God, are they staring at me? I have to put my dress down a little bit. Like, men don't know what women consciously have to, and subconsciously are like, they want to feel secure. Yeah. And part of that is not like I have to protect my woman and I have to fight for her, but part of that is upholding and knowing your value, because that's the strength of that foundation that you bring to that relationship. And then that subconsciously is how women feel safe with a man, because number one thing is I talk about is safety and status, right? Status is purpose, success, whatever success would be for you. Just because you make $80,000, that's enough. You don't have to make $200,000 a year or 500, and it's about you and knowing your standards of what you want from a woman. But at the same time, if you make $80,000 a year, you can't expect to date a date an Instagram model, and then that she only wants to date successful men, is very vocal about it, and then get mad, which I've seen. So I'm going on a rant here, but I wanted to talk about the balance in this because we're talking about this. So what, in regards to this, like the balance of like independent versus dependent in a relationship? Like, so when someone is very independent and then very dependent on the person, like how do they find that balance?
So I think the balance is you don't want to be a burden to your partner. And so when you lean too much on dependence, you can become a burden. But you don't want to deny your partner's desire to do for you. And so to me, like when I speak to women specifically, I actually have a video coming out in a few weeks about how to date as an independent woman. And one of the things I mentioned in there is that, listen, you don't have to go around asking men to do things for you, but when he offers, let him do it. Because for a relationship to thrive, we need interdependence. There are things and there are ways that our partners want to show us love. It's the same thing that happens in a parent-child dynamic, which is why you'll see a lot of mothers, when the child gets too old and quote unquote independent, the mother starts to lose her identity, and now she wants to have another child because she needs something else to pour into and that's going to love her back and rely on her. She wants to feel needed. And I think in any relationship, we want to feel valued by the person that we love. So it's important that you embrace things that they can do for you in the relationship so that they feel like they have a place in that relationship. And I think that goes both ways. Women have to take heed to that, and men. And in doing so, be independent enough that you don't have to have them do it, but you allow them. Like, one quick example, when I see my mother, I know my mother loves to cook. She loves to show love through food. So I may not need to eat. I can cook my own food if I have to, but why would I deny her that opportunity to show me love if she wants to? It doesn't hurt me to let her do it. So I think you have to start to recognize, okay, what are the things they enjoy doing? Let them do it. Let them have their role in this relationship. And when everyone feels like, okay, I bring something to the table here, everyone feels a level of value. If both parties show appreciation to each other, then everything will be good.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, you got me thinking about my mom and how she comes and cooks all the time for me. And I'm hitting that spin bike twice as hard all the time when she comes, because in the Latin community, you finish your plate. And in my family, we're Puerto Rican and Mexican and Italian mix, and we are all sitting at the dinner table on Thanksgiving. And I'm the one that always doesn't finish my food, so they call me flaca. And I'm like, I am not skinny. Come to America. I am not skinny. You know, and it's funny because that's always been in my head. And one thing, when you're coming from, even anywhere, really, the Hispanic community or just any community that's really culture when it comes to family, it's so big to give, and I think nurture as well. And I think also too, what I've noticed in different types of areas of where I've coached and where you've probably done speeches and coached so many people from all over the world, like we started on the podcast, I think issues are relatively the same, but there's different types of males, there's different types of females. And I think culture is like a really, really important topic to understand when you're dating someone, right? Yeah. So there's going to be a completely difference between dating a Russian woman and dating a Hispanic woman, and I think that's really important in regards to just when we go out there and we date, because it's really about understanding that. Do you see like a difference when it comes to that with like in cultures and different countries and things like that?
Yes, I think that there's a difference as far as like the natural approach to the relationship. So for example, I believe that, and I don't want to offend anybody, but foreign culture is more submissive. At least they teach their women to be more, bring the man his plate, make sure he's good, all these things. Whereas American culture is not as much, it's gone further away from that. And so if you date someone who's American versus someone who comes from a foreign culture, you may see an immediate difference in that way. I think even the argument could be made even when it comes to like on the man side, as far as providing. I think there's a higher standard of being a provider in foreign culture than there is in American culture. And so the approach is very different naturally. Now, I think no matter where you come from, if you're willing to embrace what's needed in a relationship, you can get there regardless of what you've been taught growing up. But I do think that the culture you come from is going to set the stage for what more naturally comes to you and what you're more already comfortable with. And because you've been taught this growing up the whole time. Yeah,
definitely. I love that. And I've seen culturally too, where people are like, I just don't understand this. And why is she doing this? And I think a lot of times too, in different cultures, like some people don't open up as and share as much because they were taught that way. And so typically in our childhood, it molds us for sometimes for who we are in the future, unless we fix the trauma and the inner child and all that. But I think that definitely comes down for people, women, men, anybody, to like really know what you want. If you want a woman that is going to be nurturing, then you need a woman that's pretty open too, that's open with her feelings, open with, listening to you and understanding her as well, seeing what she needs. And I think that's so, so important. It's funny because when you said that, something came to my mind, and it was when my husband and I were first dating. I lived in like a little studio apartment in Miami. I'm over here living my single life, living my best life and doing my thing. And all of a sudden he comes through. I'm over here, in America, you date a couple people, you don't think anything of it. You just talk, you're just talking and whatever. You just maybe go on a 1 date or 2 dates. And I ended up like really liking him. So I just ignored every other guy I was talking to because I really did like him and I was focused on him and I wanted to give him my attention because he was doing the same thing. And I just remember like 2-3 weeks into it, we were driving to Naples, escaping a hurricane, and he called me his girlfriend. And I was like, "I'm your girlfriend?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he looks at me like, why is that like not a thing? And I never mentioned anything. And like a year ago, I said, "Why did you do that? Like, that's how it happened for us." And he's like, "Well, in France, like you just date somebody. Like you don't just date multiple people. Like if I'm dating you, you're getting my attention." And it's like a cultural difference. And I was like, "Really? So I was your girlfriend from the get-go?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, okay," because I might have been talking to like 2 guys through text, but I never met up with them. So I didn't cheat. Oh my gosh, we laugh about that all the time. But anyway, so another thing, I had one of my clients, who's an amazing guy. He is actually a retired NBA player. He loves you, by the way.
Oh, awesome.
And he wanted you to kind of hit on something about emotions and men showing vulnerability and when to open up to their woman or how to be comfortable. Little background, he's been in the limelight a lot, so he's always had to be like in this whole facade, and he's dated beautiful women his whole life. And one of the biggest things that he struggled with, and he wants to know your opinion as well, being from from the limelight and being that kind of guy, was he had a hold in his emotions. He was taught like to be strong, to protect his family. Like ever since he was young, he was like just trying to provide for his family, and that was it. And his biggest question was like, how do I be comfortable finally with like opening up my emotions, opening up and being vulnerable to my woman, because that's what she wants from me now. And I'm scared to do that. And I see that happens with a lot of men.
Well, so I think what men have to understand is that opening up is not the problem. It's when you let your emotions get the best of you that's a problem. So there's a difference between, or the best analogy to give is, consider 2 children. One child comes to you very sad and says, "Hey, listen, this is how I'm feeling. I'm hurt right now because so-and-so." And so that's not a problem for you. You can hear them out. You understand. You actually appreciate that they opened up to you. The next child comes to you crying, all emotional, hysterical, can't even get words out correctly. And this to you, you're just trying to get them calmed down. It's a very different experience with them. And so now I'm using kids, but when you make that 2 men, all right, the man who simply says, "Hey, listen, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm going through," I believe that's respected. It's when you go into being whiny, when you go into just letting your emotions just be all over the place. Now, listen, that doesn't mean you won't have a moment that happens like that. None of us is perfect. But the reality is that because so many men have not gotten used to expressing themselves, they don't realize how they're so all over the place when they finally do. They don't realize how emotional they're coming off when they finally do, because you suppress so much that now you don't know how to handle it all. And what's coming out in that moment isn't even what you're feeling in the moment. It's a combination of all the other emotions you've been holding on to, and you're trying to control it, and it's hard. So I would encourage him and any man, one, you want to get comfortable with expressing yourself, because the more you do it, the more you'll master it. The more you become comfortable with it, the more you'll learn how I can still be masculine and express myself. Hell, if anything, I can even be more masculine by showing a willingness to express myself, but still have a poise to me. It's about being poised, being confident in the sense that I'm okay with saying this. And even if you want to look at me the wrong way, that's your loss. Like, you know what? If you're gonna judge me because I'm being real right now, that's on you. You could go. And my thing is this: every woman's not capable of handling that because every woman's not for you. So if anything, if you want to see who's really down for you, learn to open up. Because the woman who can handle you in that moment, all right, and you are doing your best to, again, at least be under control and poised with it, but fully being clear and honest, that's the woman you know I can ride with for the rest of my life.
Yes. Ooh, I love that. That deserves a pause. And some finger snaps. That's awesome. Why do you think, tell me this, why do you think that, this is a question from my girls too, that are probably listening. Why do you think that men struggle? First of all, a lot of men struggle with opening up and being vulnerable.
So one, of course, we just haven't been taught to open up. You know, we're taught to suck it up. As the previous question with your client, he alluded to is, you know, we're taught we got to be tough and be strong, and that means don't open up emotionally. I also think because when we finally have opened up, or in moments that we have, because we're dealing with the wrong woman, and I want to stress that, many times her reaction to it is very negative, and it makes men shut down. All right. Women are not mindful. And I don't want to say women like all women, but a lot of women are not very mindful of how they're handling that man in that moment. All right. And in that moment, he is more fragile. All right. And you do have to be a little bit more mindful of how you express yourself to him, how you receive what he's saying. And so a lot of women have used those vulnerable moments against the man. You know what I'm saying? Called him out of his name, you know, emasculated him, all these different things. And so that then causes men to shut down. But I do want the men to understand, listen, that's a reflection of her issues. And you don't need to make that stop you from expressing yourself. But yes, still be mindful on the man's side. Are you doing it in that out of control, overly emotional way? Or are you doing it in a more poised, masculine manner? And as long as you did that, if she can't handle it, let her go.
Right there, right there. As long as you're doing it in a poised, masculine manner, and you're not up here like saying manipulative things, doing anything physically, emotionally, or, you know, mentally abusive, then this is exactly, you're good to go.
Exactly.
I was on the phone call like 2 or 3 days ago with a client. He's like high up in like the political realm, right? Thank God he likes the same person I do. No, I'm just kidding. But with that said, you know, he's high up there. He's been doing it from day one. He's CNN everywhere. He fights, and you know, it's hard, especially now these days, to be involved in this, right? In that space. And he was dating a woman, and she totally emasculated him because he put down a boundary. Because he was a little passive in the beginning, because he put her on a pedestal because she was this most beautiful girl that he's ever dated type of thing, right? And then the moment he put his foot down, in a good way, because she was disrespecting the relationship in general, and she emasculated him and said, he's a little boy and I don't want to date a little boy. I want to date a man, and you're not one of them. And let me tell you something, that man hasn't been able to work as much as he has been, because he's really got to him. And I can see why. You know, men wear that with pride, right? Yeah. Being a man is very prideful. Being a woman is very sexy, right? And very, being a woman is also not only sexy, but it's also empowering, right? And so, you know, heads up to my men, and I always say this, and I love that you mentioned that, is like, you've got to be very careful with the people that you choose, men and women, doesn't matter. And my number one thing, if you are acting right with a woman and she emasculates you, biggest red flag in the book for me. And that brings me to the next question. Okay, so one of my questions I got from another guy is, how do I spot out a gold digger, basically? How do I spot out someone that's using me?
Okay, so I'm gonna address this from two angles. All
Okay.
right. So now, speaking as a man who is successful, and I remember just even on my path to more, because I've actually been successful twice in my life. I was successful once doing real estate, then the market crashed, and that wasn't my purpose. Now I'm in my purpose, and I found what I believe is true success, but even greater success than I did in real estate. Now, I used to have friends that would say, you need to be careful with these women. You don't know who just wants you for money. And my honest response, and maybe this sounds a little conceited, but I'm just gonna be real with y'all, was that doesn't concern me because I know how much I bring to the table outside of my money. So I feel like a lot of men have a fear of she'll only want me for money because you're not confident in who you are as a man. The same way that a woman will fear all he wants me is for looks because you're not confident in what you bring to the table outside of your body and your looks. And so the first step is make sure you have cultivated the person you are outside of that money. Are you a desirable man besides that money? Again, I don't want to sound conceited, but I'm at a level of confidence to where I feel like I could still get this woman even without my money. You see what I'm saying? I feel like I have enough other qualities that I at least got a shot. You know what I'm saying? With that kind of high quality woman. All right. And so I think as men, we have to build up that level of confidence by working on the other areas of our life. Now, aside from that, so going outside of the man himself, it's about paying attention to what does she do for you? Mm-hmm. Like typical gold diggers are just there to take. Now, yes, there are some smart ones that know how to mix in a little doing for you here and there. But for the most part, many of them are just acting out in selfish manner. They're not really bringing anything to the table. And because men have been taught to put the woman on a pedestal, which again, I believe in putting a woman on a pedestal. I believe the issue is that you can't just make her think no matter what she does, she gets to stay there. And that she gets to be there without honoring you in return. I'm gonna put you on a pedestal, but you better put me on a pedestal as well. Yes. That's how we make this relationship something amazing. Exactly. It can't be one-sided, and I'm not gonna diminish my value to uphold yours, all right? But because men are so focused on putting that woman on a pedestal and she's so beautiful and all these things, they end up losing sight of the fact that you're giving, and getting nothing in return.
Yep. Because it's usually in the beginning too that they're doing this.
Yes, exactly.
Put your woman on a pedestal when you're there in that relationship, when you get to know her, when you guys are vibing together. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. And so I think it's really paying attention to, okay, what does she do for me? Is she there for me when I need her? And it's not, of course, if you're a rich guy, you're not looking for her to do for you financially, But what are other ways that she looks out for you? What are other ways that she pours into your life? Is she mindful of you? Is she mindful of your feelings? Does she care about what's going on with you? I believe that in most cases, the gold digger is not concerned with those things, all right? But the woman who's really there for you cares about you. And when the money's not being spent, she still wants to be around. Like, so I have another, guys, there's a roommates podcast that I roll with. And so he was doing a call with one of his members, and he was saying how the guy went broke trying to date this one girl and was spending all this money. And so one time they went on this trip to Dubai or whatever. And I think by the end of the trip, like 3 days left, I think he ran out of money. So they had to like downgrade the hotel and all these different things. And so he asked them, he was like, listen, let me ask you a question. When the money went away, did her attitude change? Was she not being as intimate with you? How was she talking to you? And he was like, no, you're right. Everything changed. Well, that's your evidence right there. If a woman can't enjoy you, even when the money's not being spent, then she's only there for the money.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And also too, sometimes because of what you stated in the beginning, like, what do you have outside of your money? Know your worth. Because when you don't know your worth, you keep attracting those same women that are quote unquote gold diggers, what we would say, because you're leading with your money.
Yes.
And you're trying to attract her with the flashy stuff.
Exactly. And the thing is, Like for some guys, you know, some women are going to come to you because even if you're not trying to lead with money, some women may catch on and they're still going to come to you for money because the money caught their eye first. And honestly, I don't see anything wrong with that because the same way her beauty may have caught your eye first. It is what it is. But again, you've got to know that you bring other things to the table that would make her even want to stay. And when you do, then I feel like you're going to be less concerned about, oh, she only wants me for money.
Exactly. I've noticed. And also too, like if you're in that headspace that you just want to have fun, you know, and you're just trying to enjoy life and spend your money and be single and date a bunch of chicks and women date a bunch of men, there's more power to them. But we're talking in the realms of if you really do want to settle down, if you want to find the right woman for you and you're ready, I think that's a really, really, really big one. Yeah. So thanks for answering that. That was good. My next question too, I'm giving you hard ones because I love, not hard ones, but I'm giving you I think like the juicy, the good ones. And I haven't talked about this on any other podcast with any other dating coach or guy or anything because I thought it was really good for me to say one day because I was like, I'm gonna ask him to be on my podcast and I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him on this podcast. So what do you think about this whole numbers thing? Like when guys are like, how about that 10 right there? How about that? She's an 8. Would you rather be with a 7 or would you rather be with an 8?
You know, to me, I'm not gonna lie. Me and my boys use numbers a lot too. So I can't really knock the numbers. I do think that we have to understand it's very subjective, and you know, a 10 to one guy isn't a 7 to the next guy, and vice versa. And so, you know, I think amongst the men, it's just a fun way of kind of trying to quantify a woman's physical appearance. But as long as you don't let that run your whole dating life, like to me, when you get stuck into the whole where she's got to be an 8 or a 9, listen, man, you got to be attracted to her. You got to be very much attracted to her, whatever her number actually is. Because again, to you, you may think, man, she's an 8. To somebody else, she might be a 6. But if she's an 8 to you, brother, then go ahead with it. Like, don't let that bother you. Don't get caught up in other people's numbers.
There you go.
Just focus on you're attracted to her. You guys have a connection. That's what matters. You're good to go.
I'm glad you said that. Don't get caught up in other people's numbers because that's what I've seen. Yeah. So can you imagine a group of women standing there and looking at guys and be like, he's a 10, he's an 8, he's a 7.
They probably do.
No, we don't. Unless we're like in our 20s and that's the stage of when you just want the hot bodies. No, we don't. I say
yeah, so listen, women may not be talking about he's a 9, he's a 10, but they might be saying, girl, he got money, he's rich, or he's broke.
Say that. And how he makes me feel. Oh, do you know what he told me this the other night? And blah, blah, you know, like we go into details. Don't kid you wrong. And that's why I like saying that because a lot of men are like, oh, you have to be good looking to get a girlfriend, or you have to be, you know, you got to be like this hot guy to get a girl, or oh, the reason why he's successful with women, like for you, oh, Stephan's successful with him because he's a good-looking guy. What would you say to guys that think that way? Do you think that women actually do primarily go after looks?
Oh, okay, I don't think
there's 2 questions in there.
Yeah, so okay, let me first start with this idea that you got to be good-looking. I don't completely agree with that. And what I mean is, number one, there's a lot of guys who people may consider not good looking who have a woman. And I think that what guys are saying when they say you have to be really good looking to get a girl, they're saying you have to be really good looking to get the kind of girl they want. I always say that people are using the perception of the highly desirable and projecting it onto the majority of individuals. So it's like, yes, that high value woman, as you speak of, she may be considering looks way more than the average woman is because she's in a position that she can do that. All right. And she has more reason to put weight on it. However, the average woman is not as much of a stickler with it as she might be. But again, those guys are focusing on the top 20%, the top 10%, whatever you want to call it. And they're saying, well, to get no, you can get a woman. Same way, and again, I don't want to sound offensive, but I'm just going to keep it real. Same way we talk about Like, I'm going to do a video one day about, do you need to lose weight to get a man? All right.
Ooh, I love
And,
that.
and I want to mention in there that, listen, you can be any weight and get a man. All right. The problem is what kind of man. The problem is the level of commitment that man's going to give you. That's where it starts to change based off of physical appearance and how that plays into it. And so with men, if you want a woman, no, you don't have to be the best looking guy. All right. But yes, it's going to play more of a role. But I would still argue that as a man, you have other ways to work around that. All right. I remember going in college. There was one guy, he was not the cutest guy, all right? Women would always say this dude physically did not look good. However, he was in amazing shape and he was a sharp dresser, okay? And he was still confident. So despite him not being a looker, his confidence, which exudes more masculine energy, the fact that he was in great shape, and that he dressed well.
And probably could keep the conversation going.
Exactly. He was, and you know, honestly, with this one guy, I don't even think he was that smart. So I don't even think his conversation was all that great from what I was told. All right.
Oh, for those of you that can't see, I was taking a sip of water. You said that.
Okay, I'm just being real. But he was still getting women. He was still getting women. So I think that men have to, people in general have to stop scapegoating things to say, this is why I can't get a woman and this person can't. No, God gave us something to work with. We all have something to work with. Find those some things and start improving in those areas. Because the same man saying you got to look good, we all know very well, if you become rich, you're going to have a bigger pool of women to choose from, regardless of how you look.
But it's more money brought problems too. You know what I mean? Not all of them are going to be the best for you. Yeah.
True. But the point is, in the mindset of you have to look good to get a woman, it just shows that's not necessarily true. All right. Now, when you said, do women focus on looks? I do think that women use looks more than they're willing to admit to. All right. I think women are paying attention to the aesthetic. Women are not just getting with any old guy who looks any old way. Again, unless there's other qualities that have brought them to her attention, you know? Yeah. So yeah. I think that I do think that women are not as visually driven as men are, but I do think they're more driven than many will admit to. And some
take care of himself, especially if the woman takes care of herself.
Yes, and let me say this: a lot of and that's a big key if she takes care of herself, because part of the reason why women aren't as visually driven, it's not because they don't like the aesthetic or care about the aesthetic. It's that they have figured out or they have concluded that less pressure comes with a man who is not too high aesthetically gifted. All right, so essentially, it is safer for them emotionally to date the guy who's not the looker, all right? And it also helps not raise the bar on what they need to look like. It makes them more comfortable emotionally and what they present physically. They feel like if I get with the really good looking guy, now I have to worry about all the women who want him. And if I'm not secure enough in myself, that's hard to deal with. And I have to concern myself with what the hell do I gotta look like or continue to look like to keep this guy? So that's why, like, there was a study one time where they showed women a man who was like chiseled, great body, and another guy who had a dad bod. And they said, which one would you marry? Which one would you sleep with? The chiseled guy, vast majority of women chose him to have a one-night stand, but they chose the dad bod to have a marriage with.
Yep.
Because again, it's not that they don't like the chisel. Listen, there's no male strip clubs with big guys in them, all right? Those guys are ripped, they have bodies, they're in shape, all right? If women really liked or did not care about looks, then you could throw any old men in there and they would come for them. That doesn't happen like that. But the thing is, it's safer in a long-term relationship in their eyes to be with the guy who's not too good looking, but good looking enough that I can work with this.
Yes, that's true. That is true. I remember on my bachelorette party, we played that game. can't say here, but F, marry, kill, you know? I'm actually talking about this. And my 3 cards were, I can't remember the second one, but one of them was an old-time president. And the other one I couldn't remember. And the third one was Harry Potter. I forgot his name, but the lead from Harry Potter. I didn't have much of a choice. And so I had to end up marrying Harry Potter because he was just overall probably the most respectful guy out of all of it, and someone I could trust, and someone that I knew would be stable. And like, that's where my mind goes. And that's why it brought me to what you were doing, what you were saying when there was a study that they did, which is true. I agree. Yeah. I definitely think that I've dated some not so attractive men before, you know, but I've also dated, I think my husband is very, very attractive. I definitely hit the books with that one, but I definitely think that I've also dated, attractive men. But I think what brought me to also want to date the men that weren't as attractive was they like kind of filled some joy. Like they heard me, they listened, or not they heard me or listened, but they were very like prominent. Like they were very, like they knew who they were strong. Like I just felt like they were strong, and I had to kind of chase them a little bit, you know what I mean? And there was something different.
The not good looking guys?
Yeah, the not good looking guys.
That's like, interesting.
Like I had not in a form where I had to like go after them, but it's kind of like, I guess what we can call it is a tick for tat, like the banter. Like where he set himself to be very confident. Like he was like, I know I might not be good looking, and I use that to my advantage, and I talk about that openly every once in a while, but I know I have other things that are working for me. And then I'm like, what are those other things that are working for you? You know, and it gets me into that headspace, because I feel like women, they do want someone that they are somewhat attracted to, 1000%. But not every woman, obviously, like you were stating. But I noticed like there's many women, and even I have friends, that their number one thing is not looks. It's just about safety and security and having a family, because a lot of times they've also not had a good experience with a lot of the men that they
exactly. And again, you know, it goes back to where, so women view that the good looking guy, and this is there's some truth to this, when a guy's always been good looking, he typically has not cultivated the other qualities of who he is as a person, because life gets easy. It's like being born rich. You know, you don't take the time to develop personality a lot of times because life is handed to you. And so there's a depth that's missing there. Not to mention that sometimes the good looking person is still the most insecure. Whereas the individual who may not look good and they've accepted that, like I know one guy, again, not the best looking guy, but confidence through the roof. I mean, this man has no fear whatsoever, and he gets women because of that. He gets women because of that. And because, again, when you recognize, that's why I said earlier, as a man, you can't keep scapegoating your looks. You have to pour energy into the other aspects of who you are. When you do, you can win. It's the same way that how some men look at good-looking women when it comes to sex. They feel like the good-looking woman is not good in bed because everything's handed to her. It's easy for her. She never had to work for anything. But the woman who's not that cute is going all out, is doing all kinds of tricks in the bedroom. And because, again, she had to rely on other qualities to win in certain situations. And so it's crazy how it works that way. But I think, again, that's why you can still win even when you aren't the greatest looker. Now, of course, if you're good looking and you have great qualities, then of course you got a chance to really make some things happen. But even then, let the men, I want the men to know, it ain't what it's all cracked up to be. Because when you are good looking, let's say you're good looking, successful, you have depth to you, you have all kinds of great qualities, you become a very intimidating man.
Yes.
All right. And now a woman's ability to be with you becomes a huge struggle. So I know a lot of men who are considered the 1% man. And I mean in their whole well-rounded personalities, and they're successful, good looking, everything. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle. It's a struggle at the top. It ain't as easy as you think.
Those are my top clients too, unfortunately.
Say it again?
I said, those are my top clients too, unfortunately. My God, it's crazy. It is so true. That is so true. So all you men that are listening, like that is truth right there. Like it's not just because a man has all this shiny stuff and you're looking and then you're comparing yourself. Well, first of all, the first problem is you're comparing yourself. And then number two is like, it doesn't always look always that great. You know, it is a struggle, and it's just, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen. Obviously it can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it has, it's just a different experience that they really have to go through. So yeah. Awesome. Wow, that was amazing. I told you were going to be here for probably less than an hour. We're almost at an hour because I love talking to you. I can do this forever. It's just like having a conversation with a friend, and I love it. So thank you so much, Stephan, for being here. I know you have a couple of books. I know you have one that says, I think it's Love After Heartbreak as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. And then you have one for men as well, you were mentioning?
Yeah, He Who Finds a Wife.
Oh, He Who Finds a Wife. Awesome. I'm going to link that below in the description box if you're listening or watching this video. Also, please check out Stephan's YouTube channel. It's Stephan Speaks, and you spell it Stephan, and Speaks is Speaks.
Correct.
Which is really good. You have really good videos.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and you speak truth to a lot of the women, but also I think a lot of men can benefit from them. And I think you have a couple of videos for men, right?
Yeah, I got some videos for men as well. And a lot more coming. There was a method to my madness. I couldn't just come out the gate with a lot of men stuff. So, but now more is coming for sure.
I know. That's both in the online space. I know the method behind the madness. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. All right, Stephan, thank you so much for being here with me. And I just have one last question for you to leave it with this is, what type of word can you give a man right now that is listening, that is really struggling and probably down in the dumps in his life or is going through something?
You know, what's coming to me is you have time. You know, a lot of times we're so stuck in the moment and stuck in the results we're not getting right now that we're not looking at the fact that we have time to get to where we want to get to. And it's about shaking it off and focusing on, okay, what's the work I need to do? As a man, you should be looking to elevate yourself in all areas of your life, spiritually, financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, you name it. And so get on that path and find your purpose. You find your purpose and everything else starts to fall into place, and you become a more desirable man, and you can get more high quality women, and you'll have, even outside of relationships, you're going to have a higher quality of life when you tap into your purpose. So rather than focusing on what you don't have right now, focus on what you're going to go for to get. You know what I'm saying? And just focus on making progress. You're not going to be perfect tomorrow. You're not going to get everything you want next month, but you want to just keep focused on progress, and you will get there. And it's going to be completely worth it.